Hello. At the weekend, I sent an email to every candidate standing for Bolsover in the 2024 general election for an interview about their ideas to improve Bolsover and their party's national policies. Unfortunately, only two candidates responded to my email: Natalie Fleet from Labour and Robert Reaney from Reform. Natalie said she is unable to attend an interview in person but would happily answer my questions I had via email. I am still waiting on a reply from my questions. So here is an interview with Robert Reaney, standing for Reform, that took place at his home on Tuesday, the 18th of June.
Why I'm running for an MP. Hello, folks. My name's Rob Reaney. I'm a local guy, born and bred locally. Born at Woodseats in Sheffield, which many might be familiar with because it's only really sort of several miles to the north. I lived there for kind of up to being a teenager. Then we lived at Totley for a while, and then I had 18 years in Dronfield where I started my own business. And then in the last 3 or 4 years, we've moved into Chesterfield. Married guy. I've got one son. My wife works at Marlborough. My son works at a restaurant behind the castle down downtown. I've got a small business down in Chesterfield. So we're local people, born and bred locally, working class roots, and we live in the constituency and largely work in the constituency. So there's no silver spoon here. We are, ordinary working people in the area, and not sheltered from it. So I don't know what to say. I fall down the same potholes as you do. In fact, with all the mileage I'm doing, I probably fall down more than most of you do, in fairness. In terms of a working background, the first half of my career was in finance. So I was the man from the Prue for several years. Then I worked at the Midland Bank, which was taken over by HSBC, and I was there for that takeover. It was quite interesting. And then I worked for accountancy practices in Sheffield, largely working with business clients, as accountants tend to do, on the financial services side. But again, that's interesting because it gives you an insight into businesses, really from the back end, looking at the finances and what they're doing and how they make money. And you see business cycles, you see the people who start businesses and create work, you see people who've inherited businesses, you see committees running businesses, you see various different styles of businesses, and you see what's successful and what isn't. And you see patterns and you see money, and it's quite a fascinating look from the back end, really. And so that was great experience. And then I fell into my own business by a total twist of fate, really, a hobby gone mad. For the last 2 decades, I've got this vintage motorcycle business, which again, I had the insight into business, but I've now had 2 decades doing it, and I can tell you about VAT returns, I can tell you about the paper chase, I can tell you about the red tape. Actually, surviving in business is incredibly hard. Actually, I remember the business course I went on where they told me that 50% of businesses in the UK don't get through the first 2 years. Most don't survive it. So just surviving in business is incredibly hard. Being successful in business is next level. It really is next level. And so actually the business skills, which is lacking greatly, are a real attribute. So I've had 4 decades, and even the most densest person can't do 4 decades and not learn a few things. I've learned a few things, folks, and I'd like to bring those skills to bear as an MP. Not with me head in the clouds, no silver spoon. I'm here, I'm working, I'm trying to survive, and I believe that I can add value and bring some of that knowledge. Final ingredient, which you may not find critical, but one of my interests is history. Read a lot, understand history. So when you combine the financial knowledge I've got and the historical knowledge I've got, and you'd be amazed how much of our history is based around chasing money, commercially, politically. That gives me a combination of factors here: finance, history, business. That, just by a twist of fate, gives me a good balanced overview. So when I talk to other political candidates, frankly, I'm amazed how tunnel vision, some of them are, and how inexperienced some of them are. I'm not experienced in politics. I'm not a politician, thank God. This is my first attempt at it. And many of the public give me comments about how politicians promise the earth and under-deliver. And I can understand that. I can totally understand that. Reform have selected free thinkers in a way, business candidates, people like myself who want to get things done. It's a totally fresh approach. Nobody I've met in reform are career politicians. Maybe the top 2 or 3 in fairness, but all the other candidates, hard-working people. On my team, I've got a guy who runs a pub, there's a guy who runs a carpet shop, there's a chap who runs an estate agent, there's a builder, and so on. All ordinary working people, all got to be in the bonnet about something, all want to help, all want to get involved, all got their heart in the right place, and all bring in various skills. Now, career politicians in reform, maybe the top 2 or 3, but the rest of us, believe me, we want to make a difference. So, first priority is difficult because there's just so much to go at. What I am understanding is I'm getting blitzed with emails about all sorts of little campaigns. Can we help with this and can we help with that? And you can immerse yourself quite easily. But coming into it, I've got three themes that's sort of happening in my mind. One of the things that you get to understand when you're studying this is the statistics, the figures. And behind the scenes, there's people who measure everything. So in Bolsover, you can have a study that measures jobs, average salaries, average property prices, educational results, communications, businesses. The whole thing's measured. And then Bolsover is a little chart somewhere that says whether it's economically doing well or economically not. And of course, we're classed as a deprived area, quite low down the rankings, because, the mine shut 3 or 4 decades ago, but there's been no real input into bringing money back into the area. There's been no replacement of that mainstream industry. Actually, the politicians in this country, the political movement, have turned the country into what's called a service industry. So a service industry, and all the mainstream jobs have gone, the heavy industries have gone for various reasons, including environmental concerns. So my question is, how do we bring money into the constituency? How do we get cash coming back in? How do we get work coming back in? If you go to university and we've got a service industry, does that mean you take a fantastic degree and work for 5 years and the best job available is to work in a shop? Is that really it? And what that translates to is people leaving, voting with their feet, off to Australia for 4 times the salary or whatever. So we need to look at something, in my mind, that regenerates high quality jobs here. High quality jobs. And that's a tough nut to crack because that involves, I'll shorten the story, all employment revolves around sales to some degree. So you're either selling a product, or you're selling a service, or you're selling advice, or if you're just an employee, you're selling time. You're selling your time to an employer. So there's a sale always in all jobs somewhere. Sales revolve around a product or a service. So we need to get higher quality services and higher quality products here. And that is involving bringing in enterprise zones where there's tax reliefs and grants for businesses to come in. That involves training and education. At an early age, we need to improve the training so that kids are learning the appropriate skills. We need to do more for the entrepreneurs and inventors, people who are inventing products, because actually legislation's moved against them for various reasons. So I think we need a shift in job creation here. That's not reopening the mines. but that is replacing that mainstream economic driver for Bolsover. We need better jobs, we need higher education, and we need higher revenue stuff coming here. Quite how we achieve that, not got all the answers, but replacing the revenue stream is in my mind. The second one, which you're going to think, again, sounds a little strange, is heritage. I like history, I like heritage, and heritage projects, believe me, tick a lot of boxes. They create a lot of work. They make the environment and the place to live nicer, more interesting, bring tourists in. So, as local examples, the MP next door, Lee Rowley, he's worked heavily on reconnecting the Chesterfield Canal, long-term project. Great thing. That's going to bring money in. That makes the environment a nice place to live. Bolsover Castle, we've got a building here that's been built, I don't know, 1,000 years ago. It's incredible that that's still a building that creates a lot of jobs, and people like having that there, and you have the sort of shows and events there. That's a heritage project. And so heritage projects can regenerate an area. And you look at Callum Island in Sheffield, you look at Christ Tramway Museum, you look at the heritage projects around the country, all winners, all good money spinners, all good employment spinners, all good environment spinners, all good for quality of life, all bring tourists in. Heritage projects, win, 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 win. I like heritage projects. We do a heritage better than anybody else on earth, but in this area, we're thin on heritage projects. So I've not got a heritage project in mind for this area, but I would certainly like ideas and to explore what we can do. And maybe we have to look at linking up with the constituencies in the immediate vicinity. You've got Robin Hood and Shield Forest around the corner. Maybe we need something where 2 or 3 of us can get together and actually build something that lifts the whole area. So I've got 2 areas there, economics, I've got heritage. The third area, which I've got in my mind, and again, at this present stage, I don't know how to tackle, and it's more of a national issue, but really going to affect Bolsover, is the political situation, the councils. So unless you're involved in politics, you don't fully appreciate how many layers there is and what's going on. MPs and the House of Lords are the kind of shop window of politics. You can come and moan at us and we'll listen. But below that, you've got in Derbyshire a Lord Mayor, you've got a Police and Crime Commissioner, you've got a Conservative County Council, you've got a Labour Town Council, you've got a Parish Council, and then you've got your services, police, fire, social services, health. So you've got all these groups, like a dozen of them or so, all spending money, all with different priorities, none of them communicating, plenty of them overstepping, overlapping, and many of them with no accountability and making the most, some decisions you can't believe. Some of the decisions, which is why you've got councils going bust all up and down the country, of course. But some of the decision-making processes, I'm like, well, where's that come from? So in our area, and I'm told that the county council's 40 million overdrawn already, and we're in June. I read a story that despite being 40 million overdrawn, they decided to have advice on children's care. So they got 2 consultants in, and that cost more than £500,000, 560,000 or something, I want to say. £500,000 on advice. What questions did you not know that cost £500,000? I mean, I'm a Yorkshire lad. I mean, for me to pay £500,000 quid for it, I'd want next week's lottery numbers and probably Kylie Minogue's personal phone number. It needs to be serious advice to pay £500,000. So they're 40 million overdrawn already, and then they spend, you know, $500,000 on it, and you think, well, why? What? The local council Bolsover seem to be making equally car crash decisions. The kind of leisure centre at Creswell being one great example where we spend £3 million on a leisure centre that's not really a leisure centre. You've got Shirebrook and Creswell, when you look it up, have got the, I think, 8th and 9th highest tax precepts in the UK. So the 8th and 9th highest tax calculations. And it's not down to services. Those communities haven't got, they're not fantastic tourist attractions. They've got no super community facilities. You know, and you could understand it if there were possibly villages on the south coast or posh villages on the Thames, or there were tourist attractions, something, if there was some reason to justify, but there isn't. And so that basically comes back ultimately to bad decisions at council level. That's what that boils back down to somehow. And so you've got these sorts of situations where councils are unaccountable. Nobody ever loses the job. Nobody ever is pulled up. In fact, they're probably patting themselves on the back and giving themselves a bonus, quite frankly. And we're making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And we've got a dozen layers of bureaucracy. Somehow that needs to change. I'm not sure what that answer is. Reform feel always that we need to thin down government, we need to streamline it, get rid of unnecessary regulation or taxation. Reforms, standard responses, run it on a shoestring like a business would, because businesses don't carry dead weight. Getting councils or government or civil service, we have unlimited numbers with unlimited questions, and they make bad spending decisions. So they're the three areas that are in my mind as we speak. We need to bring more money into the area somehow. I like heritage projects, they win. And we need to streamline the councils. Keep coming back to examples. Derbyshire County Council's 40 million overdrawn. And last week, the Labour Council in Derby City handed them a £90 million bill for a recycling project that's gone wrong. Don't know the full details. I'm not here to point fingers or apportion blame. It's not my job. The ultimate point is there's only one loser here, and that is the council taxpayer. Because the council taxpayer, they're having the council tax shoved up dramatically next year to cover these dramatic clangers. That if you were in business and this was a company where shares were involved, guaranteed you'd be fired, you'd be gone, because the share price would be down, the profits would be down, and if this was run as a commercial business, you're gone, you know, you're history. But not in government, not in councils. I actually don't know how you get sacked if you're in a council. I really don't. I don't know what you've got to do. Maybe burn the building down or something. I don't know what you'd have to do. So accountability needs to increase. Really, it does. We need to do something there. So they're my three areas that I'm interested in. Do I know how to solve them precisely at this moment in time? No. Am I interested in and determined to solve them? Yes. Will they improve the lives of people in the area? Certainly. And I've no idea what the other candidates are interested in. The Brexit question. Yes, Bolsover constituents did vote for Brexit by, I think, something like 80%. So, in effect, the Tory MP, lovely fella, Mark Thatcher, but he is here by default because Dennis Skinner previously was a popular guy. He said it how it was. I'm picking up still a lot of respect for Dennis. You might not agree with everything he said, but my goodness, you couldn't second guess him. He really did say it in a straightforward manner, which people appreciate, I think. As Brexit being a mistake is all over the telly at the moment, and I can tell you that the Liberals want to take us straight back into Europe no matter what. They call Liberal Democrats, but it's actually on their manifesto. We're going straight back in, and no, we're not even going to ask you. Right, that's democratic. The Labour Party want us to go back into Europe or work close with Europe, which is a soft version of we're going back in slowly. People feel betrayed, but let's remember a couple of things about Brexit. This was actually in the hands of the Conservative Party, who insisted on complete control of the process. So the Europeans put forward a really brilliant negotiator, top man. We put forward Theresa May. You know, we didn't say, okay, well, we better put a sharp negotiator forward. And there's plenty in this country. We could have got the guy from Dyson, I guess Richard Branson, Lord Sugar, maybe one of the Dragons. We could have found somebody in this country to negotiate. But the Conservatives said, no, we'll handle that. We've got a top person, Theresa May, who didn't believe in Brexit, did the worst possible deal on earth, which we're still paying for. And then subsequently it's had to be renegotiated twice more. Boris Johnson with his already deal and Rishi Sunak with his winter framework, all frankly car crash deals. We haven't actually got out of Europe properly yet. We haven't finished paying for the exit fee, which I've never heard of anybody paying an exit fee to leave a club. You know, you go to a club and it costs you more to leave than get in. When's that ever happened? And we haven't slashed all the legal and red tape. We're not out of Europe properly yet. People don't quite appreciate that. And the other element, of course, is time. We're making these measurements on Brexit, but people forget we were in the European Union 4 or 5 decades. We've not quite left yet. We've not given it time. We've not slashed the red tape, and we've not taken advantage of things yet. Yet we're being told we need to decide to get back in by various parties. Do various parties want to be honest with the public and tell them to cast their eyes into Europe, which last weekend removed the vast majority of our Euro MPs? It swung heavily to the right. We've got an emergency election in France. We've got a Belgian Prime Minister who stepped down. And we've got massive Euroscepticism. France's debt situation is so bad it could derail the euro. The right-wing Marine Le Pen's coming in. The whole kind of immigration thing's really kicking off in Europe. Europe's in a frenzy. Even if we want to rejoin, now's not the moment. And the acceptance that we should rejoin, would they actually have us at the moment? They've got bigger fish to fry. And they've laid it out quite clearly. To rejoin, you give up sterling. First condition, get rid of sterling and go back into a currency that's currently collapsing. The French situation, France and Italy, if they applied to join the European Union now, would be rejected because they're in that much debt. It can derail at any moment. And you've got mainstream political parties wanting to promote the idea that it's a good idea to get back in Europe. What's that about? You know, if we go back in Europe, fair enough, but let the public decide and give them the facts. It's also giving you no historical context whatsoever. Come on, folks, understand history. We spent 1,000 years forcing people under our rule in this country. The Scottish, the Irish, the Welsh, and if you go back far enough, the Cornish. We've devolved in this country because if you look around the world at models, it's proved that local rule is a better formula. People do better financially when they've got local rule. So we've devolved in this country, yet we're racing to join a bigger club that the wheels are coming off. Why? What's that about? Just ask yourself, look at a map. People are ignoring geopolitics. Why is there country borders at all? You can land in France and walk to China. Why are all those lines there? Why did they form in the first place? And the answer is because people in different countries have different languages and different cultures. And the people in the south of Europe, it's too hot to work in the middle of the day, so they go to sleep. Whereas the people in the north of Europe only work in the middle of the day because it's too cold. So you've got different cultures acting at different speeds, which is why you used to have different currencies and you used to be able to get trade balances and things used to balance out. The model where one size fits all never works in history, never works. The European project's a great project, but it's running against the tide of history and the wheels are coming off. Okay? Yeah, mainstream political parties in this country are saying, in Europe, it's a great idea. Really? They were not telling you that there's 4 countries in Europe that actually have the trade links, but not the legal links. They're doing great. Switzerland's right in the middle of Europe, has nothing to do with the legal side, does brilliantly. So there's models that we could look at to improve our relationship, but the public are not being given the full story. They're not given the historical context, they're not given the numbers. They're actually being asked to decide here a question, a big question, based on sound bites, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle without all the pieces in front of you. You've only got half the picture. Is Brexit a mistake? Well, yeah, it's been a car crash initially, but that's because basically it's been handled by the Conservatives. But when I voted to leave Europe, along with 17.4 million of my friends, I always knew it was going to take it was going to get a lot worse before it got better. That's the nature of change. You move house, you're in chaos for a few weeks until you're resettled. We've moved house. We've moved house. We're still unpacking. Okay? We were in the European Union for 5 decades. We're not out of European Union fully yet. It needs time and a proper team and a proper negotiation for things to pick up. What nobody's telling you on the news is that our exports have gone up. I think we're third in Europe now, whereas we were something like 10th. So our economy is actually doing a lot better than some of these European people. Okay? We're just starting to feel the benefits. And now at this election, it's Brexit all over again. But you're not getting told the full picture. You're not getting told the time scale. You're not getting told the historical context. You're not getting told the car crash that's happening in Europe. It's like asking to move back into an house that's set on fire. Now is not the moment, even if we want to get back in. I'm not totally sure I can give 100% assurances on that. The aim from reform is to cut out waste and the bad decision making, actually. I talked earlier about all the layers that we've got. So, Police and Crime Commissioner, 30 staff. Lord Mayor of Derby, 30 staff. Incidentally, they put a consultation out recently, did we want that? And every district in the area said, no, we don't, but we've still got it. So you've got Police and Crime Commissioner, has crime gone down in the UK? You've got them all over the country. Is crime going down in the UK? They will produce figures to say possibly, but all those figures ignore financial crime. If you look at financial crime, check it out. Just as one thing, by population density, the UK is the most likely place on earth to suffer financial crime or fraud. And we've not won that award 1 year, we've won it 2 years on a trot, and we've never dropped out of the top 10. So these police and crime commissioners are absolutely ignoring online fraud, bank fraud, internet fraud. So when you say you can live in sort of third world countries where it's safe to be on the internet, and you think that's an exaggeration, it's not. Every third world country in the world is safer than being in the UK and having an internet presence. And the political situation and the crime situation is utterly ignoring that. So Reform's stance on public services and saving £5 in every 100 is to cut out the bad decisions and to cut out the waste. The government is gigantic. I don't think people quite realise how big. The biggest spender in this country today is the government. They spend 50% of everything spent. That's because they take 50% of everything we earn in taxes. It's a gigantic government. It's a gigantic machine, and it doesn't always act in our best interests. So reform is looking at more running it like a business, more thinning it down, more cutting out the waste, more cutting out the bad decisions. And the people at reform believe that if we applied some of those tactics, then we could say £5 per 100, 5%. We believe that's attainable. We believe that's realistic. And in saving 5%, just in purely in bad decisions, that doesn't necessarily mean loads of job losses. That just actually means running things in a more business-like way, very often. So it's very difficult for me to sit here and give local assurances, because some of the problem is local, some of the problem is national. And we've got these dozen agencies I've described operating in Bolsover, not talking to each other. I mean, the local MP's falling out with the local council over how to spend some money. So, we need to look at people communicating better. We need to be not a repetition. So the 5% saving is aimed at cutting out waste. Okay, regulations, red tape. Again, it's an overview thing. We've got the most complex tax system on earth, full stop. Okay, it's absolutely gigantic. And actually, people make a living out of explaining it, called accountants. And if you've ever run a business or a limited company, then there's a thing in this country called the Companies Act, which again is a set of rules that is literally, a volume this thick. We've got the most complicated rules on earth to run a business. And then on top of that, we've got all the rules that the European Union foisted upon us, health and safety, environmental, these sorts of things. So reform's general stance is to reduce the red tape. In simple terms, is to get rid of the unnecessary stuff. I'm a very, very small business, but the loops I've got to jump through are an employee won't put up with it, frankly. So all of this is aimed to make life easier. Actually, our businesses are held back in many, many, many respects by all this. And people really don't realise how much more money we could be making, how many more people we could employ, and how much better our businesses could do, which is one of the reasons why our economy is stalling, is all this red tape. Okay? And what reform want to do is reduce that burden, not in a way that necessarily automatically affects workers' rights. We're looking at an overview here. We're looking at getting rid of some of the ridiculous regulations we've got, the licenses we need to buy. In terms of workers' rights, that is an interesting issue in itself. Remembering that, of course, you've only got to look at history. I'm interested in history. Anybody can look up a documentary. As a child, I remember the lights switching off. The unions brought this country to a standstill. I mean, really to a standstill. And what was the union who demanded a 65% pay rise? And got it. And then immediately went back out of strike and demanded another 65%. That was in the 70s. So the unions, the unions have kind of spoilt it for themselves in some respect by holding the country to blackmail. Every bank holiday and every national holiday, the railway is going to go on strike, the bus service is going to go on strike, the airport is going to go on strike. Every holiday, it happens every time. Okay? So reform want a better working relationship with the unions. Reform want to talk about these things more, but reform want to streamline things. So where the unions have got ideas to reduce red tape, tell us, we want to know. Where the workers have got ideas, where they're concerned, come and tell us, we want to know. So the emphasis here is on lifting the burden, not on reducing people's individual rights. The emphasis here is freeing business up to make life better. Okay? So people might be frightened about this, but that's not the aim, that's not the target. And if people want to work with us to improve this, get in touch, engage. We need help with this, one would say. And so I hope that puts people's minds at rest a little, but the aim is not to damage workers' rights. It's to lift business, it's to reduce taxation, regulation, business regulation, European regulation. Okay? And we need to knock it back a little bit so that businesses have got a chance to compete with the rest of the world. At the moment, we're strangling ourselves. Nigel's great, he's down to earth. We've had 14 years of the Tories. Had a good chance. Nobody can say that they haven't had a good run. Some of the leaders in the past have been good. I can't see anybody in the Tory party at present who've got a presence. When people vote, they don't always look at the electoral, they don't always look at the political issues. Some just look at a character. Is Rishi Sunak electable? Frankly, no. In fact, I actually think Rishi works for the Labour Party with all the gas he's done. You know, the announcement in the rain, Mr. Drip. Next day, let's go to Belfast where we're standing no candidates at all, and let's have a press conference in front of the Titanic, the world's most famous sinking ship. I mean, really? And there was a D-Day thing, and then even the election day, the 4th of July, the day the free world celebrates throwing off the British elite. You pick that day. 365 days a year, and let's pick the one day when the world celebrates getting rid of the British elite. I mean, Rishi, come on, whose team are you on, my friend? So I'm afraid the Tories are their own worst enemy. They represent reform are more Tory than the Tories, really, because they've gone very left and woke and these sorts of things. And I can't see that they've got a viable leader. I don't see a Churchill there. Dare I say I don't see a Mrs. Thatcher there. I do not see anybody there that I could get behind, just as a character. Nigel's down to earth. I've met him a couple of times. Whether you like him or you loathe him, he'll buy you a pint. He's a great guy, feet on the ground, much more approachable, crack a joke, nice guy. You can have a conversation with him. He would make a much better leader. But I accept some people may or may not like him, but Nigel is somebody I can get behind. Is there another character out there? I'm sure there is. They're yet to emerge. Richard Tice is a great guy, intelligent, he talks well, argues well. He's a businessman. There's no fool in Richard Tice. He's a guy I can get behind, he's a good bloke. You don't get any poor answers from Richard Tice, like politicians don't answer a question. Listen to Richard. Yes, because. No, because. Yes, because. You get the thing up front. What do you think of this? Yes, because. Richard's clear as a businessman. Again, he's somebody you think, yeah, you get behind. The question people really ask themselves, without asking it, without vocalising it, is if we get in a real jam, and I'm talking about a shit up with somebody, a real national emergency. Do you want Richie Sunak at the helm? Do you want Keir Starmer at the helm? Really? Are they really going to lead us through a real emergency? Are they the people at the front? I don't feel confident in those characters. I don't see that they would make the right decisions quickly. I don't feel that confidence in what you're saying. Yeah, the right's fractured. Yes, we've got a limited choice. Nigel Farage is the current best choice. Talks well, he makes sense, he decides. You might not like everything he says, but you know what he understands what he says. Yeah, Nigel's the man for the moment.
Okay.
Really passionate about. Yeah, you're gonna. There's two that's sticking out in my mind. Immigration's a key subject, and there's strong opinions around immigration. It gets people really under the collar. But what I can say is that, like it or loathe it, nobody I meet is saying it's great, let's leave things alone. I'm not having that conversation anywhere. Everybody wants it to alter. And usually the vast majority want it altering downwards. So immigration needs some solution. It's remarkable to me that all the other parties say they're going to control migration. Actually, we've had the Conservative Party promise control of migration for the last 2 decades. It's fine for them to say they're going to control migration. The Labour Party is saying, trust us, we will control migration. When Reform say it, and we mean it, the accusation most thrown at us is we're racist. Yeah, actually, we're not saying anything different from the other guys. We're just likely to get on with it. We're really going to get on with it. And you've got an issue in politics where the stupid, childish politics of today, whoever's in power, the opposition vote down everything they put forward. And so what the public don't fully get is the fact that the Conservative Party, and you can look this up as a statistic, have put various proposals forward, and the Labour Party in this current Parliament right now have voted against ideas to control immigration 111 times. So they say trust us on migration and then vote against it 111 times in this Parliament. Okay? Because we've got this stupid party politics situation. So nothing gets resolved. Reform are not whipped. We're free thinkers, and we're going to come along. And if a party's got a good solution, we're free to vote for it. Migration's a big issue. And of course, the other one is environmentalism, which is kind of, well, I think the two biggest issues. The migration environmentalism, which is rampant, which is, I speak to the people in the Green Party, lovely people. But I mean, essentially, if you ask them, they want us out of cars and on, I don't know what, skateboards or roller skates in 15 years. Net zero is tunnel vision for them. There's no diverting off the path. I'm getting emails saying we need to rewild the country to 30%, 40%, 50%. And I'm getting, will I support getting rid of oil and gas? The environmental pressure is utterly incredible. The net zero race. There's no diverting off the path. And these are two issues which are right at the forefront. And I'll go off at a tangent. The third issue for me, I'm sorry, is finance. There's radio silence on this, folks. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's actually mentioned it. It's not in the press, not in any leaders' debate, the national debt. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about the national debt, which is at 100% GDP. It's the highest it's been for a long, long time. And no manifesto even addresses it. There isn't a manifesto out there discussing national debt, including our own, in fairness. There's no plans to get it down. And if you want to get depressed, there's a clock somewhere you can go and look up. And our national debt's increasing by, I think, £5,000 a second, something crazy. And I want to put it in context, the national debt. We are having great debates. I'm thinking of defence, where you're told that we're doing a brilliant job and we're going to get our spending up to 2.5% of GDP by the end of the decade. Are we doing well? We're currently at 2%. The biggest thing we spend on in this country is the NHS. I think we spend 12% of the national cake on health. Last year, which nobody's telling you, we spent more than 10% on interest payments on national debt. We didn't reduce national debt. 10% of everything we earned in this country was servicing interest. So that's 5 times more than defence. That's nearly as much as the National Health Service. And nobody's talking about the national debt. It's radio silence. What's that about? And let me tell you what's going to happen. And let me tell you what the danger is, which is not politically mentioned at all. The national debt, which isn't always in our control, but there's a third party out there. I want to style this as a creature that never sleeps, never eats, watches all the time, has no compassion, no heart, no soul. This creature measures us 24/7, 365 days a year. And this creature is called the market. Stock market, the currency market, the bond market, the futures market. It's international. It's not controlled by a government. It's not controlled by a country. It is a thing in the ether that measures countries all the time. As Truss fell foul of this when the market moved against it. And what happens in the currency market is when a country gets to a certain level of debt, depends on the country, depends on factors, but somewhere between 120, 130% national debt, then the market will lose confidence and move against you. And when the market moves against you, get ready. Because the Bank of England won't stave it off, the government can't stave it off. When the international market moves against you, that's when your currency starts to really depreciate. And if you think we've had an inflation spike recently and a cost of living spike, that's going to look like an holiday. If the market moves against us, go and look at Venezuela, where they make jewellery out of the money, where they light fires with the money. Okay, where they've had to go back to barter because the currency's collapsed. That pint of milk you buy, that bread, loaf of bread, it's going to double next week, and it's going to double the week after, and it's going to double the week after, and it's going to keep doubling until you can't afford it. We're racing towards that precipice on national debt as fast as we can. And all the political parties are making fantastic promises. Tax cuts, rises for the NHS, employment, housing, we're going to build a million houses, whatever. Nobody's talking about the national debt. Radio silence in an election. It's frightening. It's like somebody told us not to talk about it, switch the knob off. What's happened there? The national debt, getting the money right, is probably the crucial issue. Because if you've got money, you've got choices, and you can solve all this other stuff. If you've got no money, you've got no choices. We need to get the money right. That, for me, is the burning topic. So, 3 issues, the money, the migration, and the thing that's driving a lot is the environment. 3 big topics. I'm sorry. Well, I'm local. I've got this business and financial background. I've got this historical interest. And I think I make more sense than some of the other candidates. I listen to these people at hustings and I think, crikey, where are these ideas coming from? And the other thing is, we're not whipped. So if you vote for the mainstream 2 parties, you might as well just vote for 2 cardboard cutouts because they're told what to vote on every occasion, how to vote. Reform of free thinkers who aren't whipped. You're going to get a free thinking candidate who is going to stick up for you. The other 2 candidates go on autopilot once elected. They're told how to vote. So they can promise you whatever you want, but you're not going to get it. With me, there's a chance. With me, there's a chance of change. With me, there's a chance that your area will be looked at in a different way with me, even if you don't sort of agree with everything I say, come down, talk to me, we'll get the kettle on and we'll thrash it out. So I think I'm more approachable.